Okay, hello and welcome to the ManageIQ Sprint 167 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint. As usual, I will give the overview. Kavya will update us on the UI and Adam on the providers. And Jason is on holiday, so he will catch us up on all the other stuff on the next sprint review. So in this sprint, we had a drop in the number of pull requests, both opened and merged. I attribute that to not having a big blaster outer across multiple provider repos like we had the past 2 sprints. But I think there was a lot of interesting things, as you will learn here, that went into the sprint. In terms of the breakdown by type, we had 21 PRs that were enhancements, 12 that were bugs, and the rest sprinkled around. And with that, I will turn it over to Kavya.
Yep, thanks, Oleg. Good afternoon, everyone. This week, total 10 PRs that got merged across UI repos, 5 bugs, 2 enhancements, and so on. Next slide, please. This one is about carbon charts. They did a release a couple of weeks ago with lots of changes and added features, something like resizing and downloading of charts, something like that. So for that, we had to add a new package called down to image in our code. And after that, they again released one more version immediately, in which they added that package as dependency in their package.json. So because of that, after that, there was no need of adding this package to our code. So I removed that in this PR and also fixed some CSS issues caused by the version upgrade. Next slide, please. In this PR, earlier Cloud Network of schema is coming from the UI repo, and Gilbert moved these to provider repos. Not every field in UI is making sense to all the providers. For example, VPC doesn't use cloud tenants field, so he moved out all these fields to provider, and getting the data from API. Now, based on the network manager field selection, below fields will appear. Next slide, please. Here, Jeffrey fixed a bug in the customization explorer. If there is error in the if there is error notification in import export screen, and after that, if user opens any other page in that explorer, like for example, service dialog in the screenshot, when user clicks on cancel, there are 2 notifications coming up. One is from the old one, import export, which is wrong. So he fixed that here. Next slide, please. Here, this is a bug caused by, this is a bug in the custom buttons page caused by the MIQ set change. It's minor change, so fix that. This is an enhancement. David converted generic objects form to React and DDF. This form is a little bit challenging. It has like file upload and image upload components, which we never did converted before. So David ended up writing custom components for both of those. Next slide, please. This is an enhancement done by one of the community users. He or she added a checkbox, like authentication checkbox here. And if that checkbox is selected, they made like username and secret are like mandatory fields. I think that's all from the UI. With that, over to Adam.
Thanks, Kavya. So this sprint, we added an enhancement to allow Kafka to be used as the main message bus for EMS events to be published and consumed from. So this is a direction that we're going to try to get as much provider data off of the database MIQQ as possible. And this is the first step of that. So currently you need to use Appliance Console to configure a Kafka messaging server on your appliance or provide the NVARs to an external one on Podified. And currently you have to go to application settings to change the DQ method for this specific worker. In the future, we'll be making this the default, so this won't have to be required if it's present. But for now, you have to enable this DQ method in order to test it. Next slide. For Google Cloud this sprint, we added the support for collecting their SQL cloud databases. So it's currently collected in the provider and exposed via the API, and the UI should be available shortly. Next slide. For IBM Cloud this sprint, this is a pretty big chunk of work. Nasser has been adding event collection for IBM Cloud using the activity tracker. So currently we have created an API gem for this API. We created a worker to collect this, and coming up in the next sprint, we'll have event parsing so that targeted refreshes will be automatically triggered based on events coming from the API. So this is a really nice enhancement for this provider. The Power team, Jay worked on splitting up the IBM vendor into IBM Cloud and IBM Power VC, since it was, I think, primarily using the wrong icon for Power VC, but really it was overloading this particular vendor. So that was a nice enhancement, splitting that up. Kuldeep, also from the Power team, added additional collection of processor pin policy and software licenses to the advanced attributes for Power VMs. These will be exposed in the future via a built-in report from this provider. On Kubernetes, we allowed multiple clusters to be added with the same host name but different ports. This is in response to certain hosted Kubernetes clusters that only differ in the port number, not in the host name. For VMware this sprint, we added the ability to do Ssl verification and uploading your own custom CA for vSphere. This brings it in line with a bunch of the other providers, which allow you to configure custom ports and SSL options. We also handle property collector updates when the property doesn't exist. We found this via a community user who had permissions restricted to a particular cluster based on the user that they had given ManageIQ. And we were actually getting property updates from vSphere about hosts in that cluster that we didn't have any access to. So really working around a bug, in my opinion, in vSphere, but this allows the refresh to continue even in that situation. We also last sprint added requiring minimum vSphere version in the authentication attributes check. And with that in place, we're now actually deleting a bunch of the logic that we had that handled older vSphere versions. So if we were depending on a certain feature, for example, storage profiles were added in 5.5. We used to have to check that to see if we were able to collect them or not. And now we just say it has to be at least 6.0, so we move on. And we don't have to carry all that old code, which is nice cleanup. Next slide. So this is a pretty big feature that's going to land in this release from the Power team. What they're looking to do is to make it easier for customers that have on-premise Power VC systems to import their images from their on-premise deployments to the hosted IBM Cloud Power VS system. So what this is doing is if you add a Power VC and a Power VS provider to ManageIQ, ManageIQ will orchestrate the workflow to import images from your on-premise to your cloud-based infrastructure. They wrote Ansible playbooks to actually do the import, and ManageIQ handles all the credentials and everything else around that. So you can see it's using a custom button here. You click on import image, you pick your source provider, the source image, where it's coming from, and then where it's going to in terms of the bucket up on the target provider. So if you go to the next slide, we should have a short demo. This is up on the ManageIQ YouTube channel as well. So you can see we have a Power VS IBM Cloud and also an on-premise Power VC provider there. So we have a number of images here, and believe that we're going to import one that's not that's on Power VC into this. So this is showing we have nothing up our sleeve, I think. So this work's been primarily done by Iskandar, who's on the Power VS team. So you can see we clicked on this custom button. We're going to pick the source provider and which image we want to upload. So rel 8.3 was not in that list, I believe. So in order to import this on premise, it requires some scratch storage to hold the image temporarily while it's being uploaded. And then it's going to be uploaded into this target bucket. And clicked on import. So this is an Ansible playbook workflow running as a task in the background. So we should be able to see, yep, so there's an import workflow. So it's currently running. So this orchestrates telling the source provider where to upload it to in terms of the bucket. And then once that's completed, Power VS telling it to import the image from that target bucket. I don't know how long this is going to take, but oh, it's already done. Probably a very small image, or he fast forwarded it. So we go back to the Power VS provider and we should see that rel 83 in the list. Oh yeah, no targeted refresh yet, so he has to refresh it manually. Actually, that was a PR that just got open this sprint, so hopefully we'll have targeted refresh supports shortly. And so you can see we had 6 images before, now there's 7. And rel 83 is there in the list, so great success. And this is the image that got imported. You can see it's on IBM Cloud and it's a Red Hat image. At this point, you can start provisioning instances from this image now. And that's it. That was a nice demo, Iskandar. I know you're not here, but thank you. And that's it for providers. I think back to Oleg, and that's it. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, so that wraps up Sprint 167. 168 is coming in 2 weeks, same time, same Zoom. And with that, I want to thank everyone, the presenters, the community, the contributors, and everybody who helped make this sprint happen. Thanks, everyone.